Welcome to Two Across, the podcast where two friends on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean catch up over a crossword. I'm Theo in London.
I'm Rob in Montreal. So Theo, you're looking very summery. You've got a hue to your flesh that is not pale and sort of pinkish. And you are sporting shorts and looking kind of like there's a sort of sheen of sweat on your skin.
Well, Rob, the reason is it is absolutely bloody boiling over here in London. It is roastingly hot. Yeah, it's 30 degrees.
Holy
And it has
crap.
been for the last couple of days and is set to continue for the foreseeable future, as far as I can tell from the forecast. There is little respite in sight. So, being a true Englishman, of course, I'm finding this a wonderful excuse to complain. Having spent the last, best part of 6 months moaning about how cold it is, I'm now absolutely apoplectic, frankly, about how hot and sweaty I am. So what you call a nice sheen or a nice glow is in fact merely just rage about living in a country that has absolutely no capacity to deal with extreme heat, because we are, of course, we don't believe in air conditioning, really.
So the channel's no longer presenting the formidable barrier to heat exchange that it once did, despite Nigel Farage's attempts to have it become a fortified moat as it always should have been. It's allowing continental weather to leak north.
Yes, the sun is getting across the channel in a very scurrilous way. So this fine island nation that prides itself on its intemperate climate is now just having to be all continental, which is very disconcerting, frankly.
Yes, it's threatening the very bedrock of your society, dare I say.
Of our identity. Yes, I don't know who I am anymore. And actually, I have to say, as a family, we're relatively fortunate in that our skin seems to tan quite well. But nevertheless, it doesn't stop me, anxiously slapping on the sun cream every morning.
You must.
And fretting over hats and sandals and all the rest of it. And that's one aspect of it. I think when you've got kids, the sun suddenly becomes a sort of existential threat in a way that, it wasn't beforehand.
But you know what?
Go on.
I was going to say it's worth it because I was the dermatologist yesterday having various things blasted off with liquid nitrogen that are the vestiges of a youth of not wearing enough sunscreen, and thinking that despite my intense paleness that somehow there was a tan if I just tried hard enough. And well, there wasn't, and now I've got these sort of lesions that pop up every once in a while as a result. So I would say slap the sunscreen on.
Rob,
I'm a full convert.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
It's just, middle-age maintenance.
Yes, we must bear such crosses. But anyway, let's move on from weather, because we do often get too fixated on it on this podcast.
We
and
do.
there are other subjects of note.
Do you have one?
So I have one which is actually related to words, which is a subject I assume is of general interest to our listeners.
Near and dear.
What I might do is pin this for the end of the episode,
Okay.
because it's kind of what I want to do is kind of set a challenge to our listeners and see if they can send in some responses in reaction to this challenge. So what I might just leave that dangling and pick it up at the end of the show.
A dangling participle.
A dangling participle, if you will, indeed. So, yes, in other news, so obviously last week I talked about seeing the ABBA show Voyage. This week, my sort of cultural reference point is the Live Aid musical Just for One Day, which I attended earlier this week, and in the company of none other than Sir Bob Geldof. So I say in the company of, I was not, I wasn't his plus one or something. I was there to review the show. And then
He wasn't your plus one?
He wasn't my plus one, remarkably, although I'm sure he would have loved to be. At the curtain call, Sir Bob came out on stage and gave an absolutely barnstorming 15-minute speech.
Wow.
Taking a broadside against Musk, Trump, Starmer came in for some heavy criticism as well, but essentially, on the subject of the cuts to international aid that have been
gutting
made.
of international aid in favor of international war making.
Exactly so. And in his word, he called Musk, I'm going to put an E on this episode immediately because I'm going to quote him, the famous F-bomb dropping Sir Bob Geldof. He described Musk as a prime wanker. He said he said he was a ketamine crazed lunatic, I think was the phrasing he used. And he made the point, he said the richest man in the history of humanity is cutting aid to the poorest. And
it's a bad look.
Just in and of itself is a bad look. He railed very articulately, I have to say, against all of that for a protracted period of time. And it was, I have to say, it was stirring stuff. And it made me sort of rather sad about the fact that we don't have that many voices, seemingly, at the moment, which are making this point, I don't know what your impression of that is from the other side of the Atlantic, but it certainly feels on this side like those voices of dissension have gone mute.
Yeah.
Where are they?
I don't know. We're grumbling here, but we're more grumbling about the damage that's being done to us and trying to repair it so we can get back to feeding it the great trough of America, which hopefully, apparently, the news has will happen in the next 30 days, so they say. But yeah,
does that mean tariffs being lifted?
Well, no one knows what it means, but there will be a new trade and security arrangement, so say they, from the G7. And I don't want to get too deep into all the machinations of politics because we've done a lot of that recently. Yeah, in terms of voices of dissension, I have, Bernie's doing his road tour with AOC. They go and do their various things around and against the oligarchs, and there's the no kings and stuff. Hopefully we'll pick up steam. I think the thing that's just more sort of worrying is the amount of people that are easily cowed by threats and immediately come into line. And it says something about human nature. You do think about previous periods of repression, which, to be honest, is probably the majority of human history, right? Like, we're probably looking at like 95+% of human history or more where humans have lived under fairly repressive regimes of some sort of another. It could have been within the Celtic wood enclosed village where some chieftain would sort of oppress everyone or whatever. But we're very good at putting together systems of oppression that benefit few men at the expense of many people. So this is, in a sense, regression to mean. The hope is that somehow we find a way out of it. I don't know who it was that I was listening to. I don't know. Someone just, basically the trope that's out there, but it's true, is that every generation has to fight for democracy. I think that's important. And every generation has to learn to do it. The problem is that there are generations, certainly after us, and maybe this is the old slagging the young, but that, they're sort of too busy on social media to really care about democracy.
Yes. That's a very important point. I think that this is as much about the way the culture works now, or doesn't work, it could be said.
Yeah.
And something that struck me watching this show and made me very nostalgic was the fact that it reminded you that the whole kind of cause of Live Aid sprang from a single BBC News report, which Geldof was watching one night at his house and then was horrified by and decided to, that sort of set the whole thing in motion. And it made me nostalgic for a time when a news report could do that, that these days I feel like that wouldn't be seen, or if it was seen, it's just part of this cacophony of sort of horrendous imagery from everywhere, and it's easy to block out the individual story, I suppose, or the individual crisis, and just dismiss it as just part of this sea. I think the sort of proliferation of content in so many forms has definitely had that effect, that it's almost made us all numb to almost anything that's happening in the world.
It's made us pliable, I think, is the thing. Like, everyone sort of stuck in the cult of me, and stop me immediately if I've made this analogy on the pod, but I'm going to go back to my old favorite classic Star Trek, which through 79 episodes captured all aspects of the human ordeal in vivid color. And there's one episode in specific where this sort of malevolent character known as the Angel shows up on the ship, and he's sort of got these kids that he's controlling to do his bidding that the ship picks up from a colony where all the parents are dead. And it's called And the Children Shall Lead, for anyone who wants to watch the episode. So this angel basically, through the kids, takes control of the Enterprise, and how he does it is quite clever. He basically confronts every single member of the Enterprise who's in a sort of command position or able to steer the ship or communicate in a sort of cascade of their own fears. And so everyone just sort of gets obsessed about some sort of fear. So like Sulu is sitting at the controls, and all he sees on the screen are these like daggers and threatening things, and he's like paralyzed by fear and he can't steer the ship. And then Uhura is looking, and I guess this is the 60s, tried to be advanced but couldn't get that far. Uhura's looking in the mirror in front of her and seeing that she's gotten old and ugly, and she's just done by that. And then Kirk is stuck in this delusion that he's losing control because Kirk's a control freak. And so everybody is undone by their fears, and it makes them inward looking and completely unable to jointly face the crisis that is threatening to envelop them. And I think if there ever were a very apt metaphor for social media in our age, it's that.
Yeah.
Because, we're all sitting there. Yeah. And some malevolent Silicon Valley angel is sitting there controlling our children and controlling us, and it's feeding us all this content and gamifying us to stay on this rubbish carousel of, it's basically like our own personal self-validation casino while Rome burns, and that is depressing. But I've been reading this book, as I said last week, on the evils of social media for kids, so I'm deeply steeped in this depressing narrative.
On which cheery note, Rob?
On which cheery note? I love bringing it down, Theo. I'm very tired. I had a late night last night, which I'll get into after the crossword.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's pin that. Colour me intrigued. Well, let's do the crossword, and then we will pick up again on the other side.
Let's go to the crossword, because crossing words is fun.
All right. So we got Guardian quick crossword number 17,197. You can download the Guardian app for a better puzzles experience. There's our plug. I would suggest not doing it because it doesn't actually work that well on phones. We stick with the old browser version here on twoacross.
Not a better puzzle experience on the app. A better puzzle experience on the browser would be the general feedback.
Very fast instructions, because anyone who's been here from the beginning, and thank all one of you, this is a crossword we try to complete in 30 minutes. We have not seen the clues before. We have a timer. We try to stick to it. When the timer goes off, it's over. We win, we lose. And right now, we are sitting at 16-16 apiece. So mathematicians in the audience would have a sense of what number episode this is. And we are drawing close to our estival pause, and we really want to get to a winning posture. And today is our opportunity to do so. And you, faithful listener, are here to join us as we do so, or as we try to do so. Maybe I should preface that, caveat that. I can take that out if we
Yeah, let's not get too carried away. So yeah. I've set the timer off, Rob. Let's dive in.
Take us somewhere, Theo.
Okay. Did you say the crossword number?
17,197. And you can play along by clicking on the link in our show notes.
You can. But not via the app. So let's go one down, because this is pertaining to an area that is within my wheelhouse, as one might say these days. It is the unsurrendered part of a ticket. 4 letters.
Oh.
And I believe...
The idea of surrendered.
I know. I've unwittingly surrendered the larger portion of my ticket. Retaining only the stub, I think, would be the
it's
thing
quite long.
Looking for there.
It's quite long, isn't it? Oh, is it just...
No. It's one down. It's four letters.
Oh, one... Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I was looking at 5 down for some reason. I was like, the stub's not going to fit in that 11 space gap, Theo. Hate to say it.
It's one down, and the second letter being T means that 5 across, which is an anagram, will potentially be quite straightforward, because it is an anagram of no doubt UFOs.
Plural.
And the clue is off limits, 3 to 6. And if the first word has a third letter of T, I think that could be out.
Out. Drum roll. Theo's working your way towards this.
The cogs are slowly gearing up.
The portcullis is raising.
The portcullis is raising very creakily with a little bit of rust, but it is raising. And I believe the final word of that little phrase would be bounds.
Bounds. And Theo just bounded through that.
I did.
Gleefully,
Absolutely.
I would add.
Bounded over the portcullis.
Yeah, out of the portcullis, across the bridge, over the moat, bounded, a gleeful rabbit, like that killer rabbit in the Holy Grail.
Oh, yeah, another Python reference. There's a definite rule of two across that every episode you'll either get a Monty Python or a Star Trek reference. And this episode, you've had both. So
aren't you lucky?
Consider yourself blessed. So, 2 down, something offensive. 7 letters, second letter F.
Yes.
Something offensive, which can't just be
Offense?
offense. Yeah.
That would be
I was
awesome.
thinking that.
He's like, it's the end of the night. He's been drinking. He's at the pub. He's like, crap, I got to file the crossword. He's like, what am I going to put for a clue here?
That is an... no, can't think of it. Can you think of anything there?
An affront?
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Double
I'm
F.
deeply affronted.
I am affronted. That's a wonderful word.
It is a
Yes.
good word, eh?
I like that. Let's go with that. Okay, here's a quick one. 7 across pavement edge. 4 letters ending in B.
But it's not so easy if you're unaware of the British spelling of this word, because you would put the North American spelling in if you were from my side of the pond, and you would be wrong. Because we spell it with a C and a U, and you spell it with a K and an E.
I think it's got to be K and E, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Kerb. You see, it looks like kebab. Like, it looks foreign and wrong.
So curb is... So a pavement curb to you is the same spelling as, curb your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Although I suppose they mean similar things, like the edge of. So edge your enthusiasm,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but then they like curb your dog. What's that?
Not
What's
an
that
expression
from?
here, incidentally. Curb your enthusiasm. Note to Larry
No.
David. You would say stop showing off here. Yeah, which is a classic of the classroom.
Yes.
I used to get told to stop showing off, and it's absolutely mortifying.
Were you a clown? Were you a clown, Theo?
Oh yeah,
Because that's the best way. Yeah.
I was a very
Shoot down a
short
clown.
child, and I think anyone who is short as a child usually has an outsize personality to
We have to.
compensate. Because
I was
you
also
were too.
small.
There
yes.
you go, Rob. That's why we do a podcast. Because
small and high voiced. We found each other, Theo.
yeah, I think pretty much every stand-up comedian, if you asked whether they were tall or short as a child, the vast majority would be short. Same with actors. Same with I think it's a bit like that middle child thing. I think there's something. Which I am also, by the way.
Me too.
Child. So, and you, of course.
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
There's a whole reason, and we've discussed
know.
our also being choristers and all the rest of it. So we, yes, we do have this in common, and I think somehow psychologically you're always the size you were as a kid. So it doesn't matter how much you grow subsequently. I mean, we're both now pretty average height, but in my head, I'll always be the short guy. And so I need to, make up for that. How do we get onto this? Kerb. Oh, stop showing off. Yes.
You're always the size you were as a kid, and you always have the beard that you did at 18. Like even if you're like 50 and can grow a pretty full beard, you're still like, no, it's a bit too thin on this side. And like, there's this sort of bald spot underneath.
Yeah.
And,
Well, in my case, that beard never came. So, I've had to make do with a sort of scraggly goatee at best, which, as you pointed out when I showed you a photo of when I grew a goatee in the lockdown, made me look like a Trotskyite.
Oh, I've
I was
traumatized
quite
you.
flattered.
Oh, okay,
To
good.
be honest, I didn't mind that at all.
Well, one likes to look revolutionary.
Yeah, quite so.
Yeah.
Right, we better get on. So 5 down, gaping, 4-7, and it's
Gaping.
O blank E.
O blank, E blank. Whoa, where are we? Where are we here?
So 5 down. This is the one you thought I was doing at the beginning.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so gaping. So, I mean, you would think that would be over, because what in the heck else fits in O blank, E blank? And then we have 7 letters of zilch, as my mother would say.
Open.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, open.
Also
yeah,
fits.
For sure. Wow.
So open-mouthed.
That fits. It does fit. Well, Theo, being in the word business, you might get this. Publisher's brand, which is 7 letters long. It would give us, its second letter would be the first of the second word of open. If anyone followed that, good for you, because I didn't.
The second letter's M.
Potentially M if it's mouthed, and it's publisher's brand, 7 letters, second letter M potentially, and second last letter N.
I think I do know this.
What is it?
It's an imprint.
Oh my God, Theo. Yay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
okay, so mouth still in the running. Should we go for the home run swing, or swing for a 6 and go for, if the U would be the second letter, if it is mouth, of surge of activity, which is 5 letters long, potentially having U as its second letter. A surge of activity.
And it's obviously not surge.
No, because that would fit. That'd be, wow.
Would be nice.
Further laziness from the setter.
I'm not seeing that.
Yeah.
Something like a rush, but that doesn't fit.
I know.
I'm sure that we'll get it. We'll get it. But we might need another letter. We could get another letter. 10 down, come back, first letter R, and it's 8 letters.
Yeah.
So my guess for this, if it fits, would be... No, it doesn't fit. I was going to say revival.
Could also be a retort, like a snappy comeback.
Oh, that's nice.
Do you ever read Mad Magazine?
Also doesn't fit, I think.
Didn't have that in the UK, Mad Magazine. It's more you just sort of read Beano.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Because I used to get mad. I would bring them to the UK in the summers because I loved them. I had a subscription. And they had one, it was just a kid's sort of novelty, jokey thing. But they had always had a section called Snappy Answers to Stupid Questions.
Oh, nice.
And it was where someone would ask something stupid, and then, they would have like some comeback. So Bart Simpson famously went to Mad Magazine in an episode and looked up at the receptionist, and it said Mad behind her. And he said, "Is this Mad Magazine?" And she said, "No, it's Mademoiselle. We're getting our sign on the installment plan."
Very good.
Anyway.
So we've got 20 minutes left, Rob.
Yeah, okay, look.
So we're a third of the way in.
Yeah, and a third of the way, maybe through the clues. I don't know. Toxic gas, Theo. Maybe Zeus is releasing some of this at your feet. CL.
Well, hang on. CL, does that
Big
not
C,
imply...
small L. Yeah.
Yeah. Chlorine?
Sure does.
But chlorine's not toxic, is it?
It is. It's what they used in like mustard gas and stuff.
Of course.
Or maybe not mustard gas, something else, but like chlorine gas was used in the First World War to gas.
Of course it was. And we all merrily swim around in it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, small amounts of it. But so your mouth is still very much in play, Theo, because that puts an H in the third last position where we would want mouthed to be.
Yes, I think mouth is looking correct. And we now have a 5th letter of our comeback, which is 8 letters. First letter R. Now the 5th letter is O. So,
comeback.
What else is if a sports person is sort of falls out of favor and then suddenly makes what would you just a renaissance or
a renaissance. Yeah. Let's leave this area. This area is giving. It's getting us down. I think we should go up to 3 down and harvest some of the things that your out of bounds have given us. Which 3 down is formally make in brackets a complaint. 5 letters. Second letter is an O. This is also the last name of one of Archie's potential love affairs. Who was the rich one who always spurned him?
Is it Lodge?
It is. Veronica Lodge.
Excellent.
Ooh, Theo, we've got another anagram.
We love an anagram.
It is an 8-letter long word with its second letter being N as in Nancy, and it is a mean hat. Those are the those are the letters we have to play with. Mean as in cruel. Something hated is the synonym. A mean hat.
So you're the anagram master.
Yeah, I think I've got it because it's the
Nice.
TH. I think if you look at the TH, that'll help you because they probably need to go together.
Anathema? No.
Ba-bam.
Yeah? Is that right? Nice.
Shit, yeah.
I like that
think
word.
so. Yeah.
That is anathema to me.
Yeah, anathema. I like
Although I would
anathema.
normally think of it as something sort of oppositional to me rather than something hated to me. You know what I mean? But
yeah. Or just something that
enough.
is just completely unacceptable. It's like I cannot even admit it into my thinking. It must be banished.
Yeah. Okay. So now 8 across, we've got 3 letters for this, and it's the clue is proper, comma, legitimate. 8 letters, and it's R blank G blank T, and then 3 blanks.
You got to think that's going to be right at the beginning.
Yes.
But then righteous, I mean, that righteous doesn't fit, and what fits afterwards? Maybe if we
Rightful.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
My rightful heir shall emerge upon my deathbed.
I'm speaking of rightful heirs. I'm currently reading with my daughter my grandmother's book Journey to the River Sea, which is partly involves a sort of plot for the long lost heir to an English estate to be found in the Amazonian rainforest. And yes, anyway, it's really delightful, and obviously I am biased, but it's a really, really good read. And my daughter's never really wanted us to read to her. She's always preferred to read herself, but this one I was like, I have to read this to you. This is rite of passage stuff. She's very gracefully accepted and is really enjoying it. And I have to say, I'm just loving the excuse to sort of, do my different voices. And
yeah. It's fun. I love reading to the kids.
It's great fun. And I haven't, as I mentioned, because she hasn't really wanted me to read to her, I haven't done that much of it for her. So it's just, I'm really, really enjoying that. So just wanted to flag that. Copies are available in all good bookshops. So.
I believe because I think my daughter's read a few of your grandmother's things, and she loved that one, The Journey to the River Sea. I remember her talking about
it. Is that's a sort of it's the one most people would know her for, I think, for good reason. It's a really good read. Right, 6 down. Meat and pastry snack 7-4 S blank U something.
And didn't someone win the Christmas song contest with a song with this title?
Oh God!
A couple of years back.
Remind me, Lad Baby. You're talking about
Lad Baby.
They had like number ones for something like 4 years running or something incredible.
Yeah.
And I never really understood the Lad Baby phenomenon. I get they were doing it for charity, and well, supposedly anyway. And that's I suppose all well and good, but the songs themselves, I mean, I couldn't tell you a single one. This is probably actually the only one I could name, which is Sausage Roll, by the way.
Sausage Roll.
Yeah, let's swiftly move on from that because I don't think either of us have much to say about the oeuvre of Lad Baby. Okay, you do. Of course. Yes, those who heard Rob's ABBA rant will... No.
I'm not going to enter into any discussion on it whatsoever.
Okay. All right.
I think we need to move on.
Let's swiftly move on. Yeah. Let's not sully this podcast with any more talk of Lad Baby. So 11 across, go bad. 5 letters, blank E, blank A, blank.
Yeah. Go bad.
And that's all the letters we're going to get. So
I know.
So it's something like rot. So we've got 13 and a half minutes left, by the way.
I know.
What does something do if it?
Oh,
it doesn't.
I think think of the context of a body, like what a body would do in the ground.
Oh, so not rotting.
No, or what would happen to your teeth if you ate too much sugar?
Festering.
No.
I don't know, Rob. You're going to have to tell me.
Well, think about your teeth when you get a cavity. What's happening there?
Oh, yeah.
There's tooth this.
Oh, decay.
Decay.
Lovely.
It's kind of, you look at it, it's quite a joyful word. Decay. For something that's
is a bit,
not,
yeah.
you know, not something you really want in your life.
It sounds a bit like something you might say at the turn of a, like in New Year's Eve 2029. Yeah. Oh, we're entering a new decay.
Lovely.
And
we may well.
In fact, just means the slow disintegration of something.
Of living matter.
Of living matter, so.
Corruption.
Stuff. Right.
Yeah. Our old friend has made a reappearance, Theo, an old friend that we've seen a few times in our Two Across journeys. That's 17 across. Cross in church. Third letter O. I think this is potentially its third, if not fourth, appearance on Two Across.
They love this word.
They love it.
At the Guardian Quick Crossword. And it is, drumroll, rude.
Yes.
R-O-O-D.
Yeah.
Which was not a word, I have to admit, I was familiar with before doing these podcasts. So, yeah, I'm grateful.
But now we're not only familiar, we're on speaking terms. On first
we're
name.
over familiar.
Yeah.
I think that's probably cropped up more times than any other word, actually.
I
rude.
think so, yeah.
And I can see why, because as a crossword setter, it's quite useful having a
highly,
a double O. But anyway, yes, let's.
You could have put riot there, though. You know,
I suppose. Yeah.
Anyway, they like the rude. It's a bit of sort of
rude.
Arcane knowledge that serves to separate their tribe from others. You know, people who know what rudes are.
Now,
people like us, Theo, that were indoctrinated as kids and have now left the faith.
Indeed, there's a big subject for another time. 17 down. Wander about now has a first letter of R and it's 4 letters long.
And could be 2 words, both with a second letter of O. It just depends which one it is.
So it could be rove.
It could be rove. That was my first thinking, but it could also be Rome.
Well, let's see what 18 across gives us, because this is a long un. It's 11 letters long, and it's critical reaction, ? Beginning with D.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that should be, again, familiar to me, having given out many a critical reaction in my time. But I'm not seeing it immediately.
No. So if it were V for rove, it would end, this 11-letter word would end in R space V space L. So...
Oh, hang on. We haven't got portable weapon officially, which is 12 down.
Oh, sorry. I penned that in. Hee. Apologies. There's an R at the second last letter.
So, what is that, Rob?
It's another name for a gun. The U.S. likes to use it. It's a very official sort of term for a gun.
Oh, what is it? Talking of guns, by the way, have you seen the new trailer for The Naked Gun remake starring Liam Neeson?
Are they doing that?
Yeah, they are certainly doing that.
Oh, my God.
Let's save this till next episode, because I want you to watch the trailer and then we can
I'm going to watch the trailer. Ooh, because that's going to be hard to beat.
There's some good jokes in there, but also some absolutely fist-chewingly awful ones, and which I suppose is kind of very much in the,
that was Leslie Nielsen's shtick.
In the spirit of Naked Gun. But I was, I'm intrigued. Let's just say that. Come on, Rob, just tell me portable weapon, because we are running out of time. Firearm. Right. Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Which now gives our increased in size. I don't know if we'd actually even done that, but it's
no, we haven't.
Space I, space A, space E, space, which I imagine would be a D, because it's increased.
So it's 7 letters long, increased in size, and this is all the letters we're going to get: blank I, blank A, blank E, blank. When you don't have the first letter, it's always that bit harder.
It is always that bit harder, yeah.
Increased in size.
I know.
I would imagine it ends in R, but...
Yeah.
Oh, well, actually, it's past tense, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
it's
probably
past tense. No, it ends in D. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come back to that. Oh, I think I've got our critical reaction.
Oh, that's
Question
really
mark.
good. That's like,
Yeah.
that's huge.
And I think it's quite simple. So
Okay.
I'm gonna enact my revenge here, Rob, by not telling you what it is. I'm gonna school teach you through this.
That's unacceptable. I'm going to throw a complete wobbler, Theo.
If you are not in favor of something,
Yes.
particularly as a sort of overbearing parent, you might be said to be showing your about your
my
child's
God.
behavior.
Disapproval.
Yes. Well done.
Oh, good one, Theo. Well done.
Which
that
means
was
it
good
is
school
rove.
marmishness. Better than mine. Rove. Yes, rove. Okay, that's great, Theo, because that gives us a couple of letters on.
Yeah, we got 6.5
15
minutes
down,
left, by the
10
way.
down. Okay.
So we got roughly a minute a
Okay.
clue.
Increased in size.
So let's 15 down. Bitingly cold. 5 letters. Blank I blank P blank. Nippy. Sorry.
Oh, yes. No, that's very
Sorry
good. I
to
like
rush
that.
ahead. But
No,
time is of the essence.
Time's of the essence.
This 10 down comeback. We now have R blank 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 O blank S blank.
Yeah.
Rest something.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite work, does it?
No. I thought riposte, but that doesn't fit either.
Oh, that's a lovely guess.
Mm.
But it doesn't quite fit. That S is just in the wrong place.
No.
And the O, to be fair.
Yeah.
So we have 3 left to get. And we have 5.5 minutes to get them. So they are 14 across.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, increased in size. Blank I, blank A, blank E. 10 down, come back. R, blank, 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 O, blank, S, blank, and 13 across, surge brackets of activity. 5 letters, second letter U. So,
Yeah.
you were about to say you think you've got one.
I think I might have 14 across, which think about increased in size as in an aperture, such as your pupils.
Is
Like
it A-N-E?
It is not.
Oh. Okay. So, is it A-R? No.
Nope. So when your pupils do this specifically, there's certain hallucinogens that will make your pupils rather large, as back to The Simpsons happened to Homer when he ate the insanity peppers, and his pupils got very large. And
Dilated?
Dilated.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny when dilated is a word that always makes me think of shrinking rather than growing. So, yeah.
It doesn't sound
clever
impressive.
clue. No, it doesn't. It sounds like a diminution rather than the opposite. So, yes, thank you for helping me there. Come back, still not seeing this.
No.
So we only have 2 to get, and we've got 4 minutes.
We have. Oh yeah. Okay. We're assuming mouth is correct. I think we have to at this point. It looks.
Oh, mouth. I mean, come on.
Yeah, open mouthed. Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. A surge of activity. Huh. Yeah. It's this, like, the fact that it's 5 letters long. Just really.
Burst.
Oh, Theo.
A burst of activity.
I like that.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay, so we have 1 left to get, and I don't know the last time we were in a winning position, but it's been a long time, and this could be our opportunity.
Well, as in, well, I mean, we've won many times in recent crosswords, but
not been overall in the scores.
Oh, I see.
above
As in,
the
this will get us
line.
up to 17-16. You're quite
This
right. This
one
is huge.
clue. I know.
So it's just as a reminder, it's comeback, 8 letters, R blank S blank O blank S blank.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know. I mean, it's got to be RES, right?
Yeah.
So what's that fourth letter? RES space O space S space. This is where we're at. I mean, it's...
I really hope it's not going to be one of these quite obscure words that we should know, but we just don't.
I feel it's one of these words that we should definitely get. We just got to find... Oh! It is the latter, Theo. It's very much the latter.
Okay.
How much time do we have?
So we've got 2 minutes for you to patronize me through.
I'm not going to patronize
trying to
you.
get this.
I don't want to patronize.
Or as the old joke goes, the old Jimmy Carr joke about getting an audience member came up to me after the show and said, I found your show a little patronizing. And I said, I think you'll find that's patronizing. It's a goldie. So, come on. Okay. RES. So it is RES.
It is RES.
R-E-S-P-C-T.
Find out what it means to me. RESPONSE. Find out the TCT. Yeah, I just spelt it out, actually. If you rewind the tape.
Oh, what is it, Rob?
No. If you are in charge of something, you are...
Response? Oh, response. Yeah. Okay. That's a bad clue for...
It's not great.
Response, I think.
It's not great.
A comeback, response. Reply would be a better clue. Just for info. Right, let's stop the clock.
But it wouldn't fit, Theo. It wouldn't fit. So...
No. 40 seconds left. Are there any spellings we're not sure on?
I spelled disapproval.
It's my crossword of record.
Wow.
Rude is ROOD, isn't it?
I believe it is.
Yes. Okay.
Well, my disapproval spelling was disptuval. So I'll have to change that.
I'm happy with... Good. I think I'm happy.
Are you happy?
Well, Rob, therein lies a question. Okay, so the time is about to go off. There it is. So let me do a quick check all, and hopefully all being well. We are all correct. Woohoo!
Wow. There you go.
So there we go. Back into the lead. And that is a rabbit out the hat, because we were down and out about 7 episodes ago. We were really not looking good. I think, we were at least 5 or 6 down. So that is impressive that we've
Well, as they say, where I come from, we pulled that out of our ass.
We did indeed, which is just a horrible expression.
Yeah, because no one wants to see whatever it is you pulled out of your ass.
And it certainly wouldn't be greeted with a kind of like, "Way, he's pulled something out of his ass. How brilliant!" No, it would be greeted with absolute horror.
Opprobrium.
Yes. It's making me think, how can we work some words from the crossword into it, and inevitably that object would be decaying, and one's arse would be dilated. And
yes, it would be. In order
the
to
imprint on people's minds would be out of bounds.
It would be.
They would be open-mouthed.
So would you, in a sense.
More than open-mouthed.
Yeah.
Anyway,
your rightful hole would be open-mouthed.
Oh God.
Whence would issue chlorine gas.
What an affront.
Yeah, unless it were nippy, and then it would certainly not be dilated.
Yeah, and you probably only have a stub.
Take a good rude to open that up.
But all of that is anathema to me.
It is.
So
it is.
Let's move on.
Let us rove away from this place and move to other curbs.
Oh dear me!
Lest our listeners lodge a complaint with the telecommunications authorities for this terrible weaving of words together based around a very shameful premise.
Sorry for lodging that in your minds.
Crosswords done, that would was fun. Now let's have a chat.
Moving swiftly on, shall I address my starting pin, which was this idea of a linguistic challenge to listeners?
Yes.
So I booked some theatre tickets, as I want to do, the other day, and I booked, because there were only 2 seats left in the stalls or whatever, I booked them one in front of the other.
Right.
Okay? And then it struck me, if they were next to each other, we'd say they were side by side, or they were next to each other, or they were adjacent.
Right.
But when 2 things are, as I described them, one in front of the other, apart from that expression, we don't really have a way of saying that. Like, how would you describe 2 things that are, well, in adjacent positions, but not side by side?
Yeah.
Because I would describe that as a linguistic gap. I think we don't have a word or an expression that adequately describes that situation. I have obviously just described it by saying one in front of the other, but I don't think that expression adequately describes that arrangement of 2 items.
No.
So then I was thinking, well, what could you describe them as? And I really struggled to come up with an adequate phrase that
you could say like
means
opposed,
2 things.
but that would mean that they're kind of facing each other.
We're sitting in 2 seats that are... So this is where it gets difficult, because I was then going to text my friend and say, I've booked the theatre tickets. They're not next to each other. They are... And I was like, I don't know how to describe this in that context, because they're not actually in front of each other, because one is behind. So anyway, that prompted me to think, what other linguistic gaps do we have in the English language? I mean, there are many. We don't have particular words for certain things, but I'd be intrigued to know what listeners consider to be their own linguistic gaps. You know, what sort of words or phrases do you wish did exist that don't exist? Classically, the Germans are very good at coming up with very specific words for particular emotions.
Leuchtkissen Fahrzeug, which is a hovercraft.
Oh, is it? Right.
Yes, it literally means air pillow go thing.
I mean, that is just brilliant. Yeah. That is brilliant. So, yeah, and I guess you could say hovercraft does do that job more succinctly. But I like the idea that they've just thrown something into the language to fill a gap. You know, it's like, well, I need a way to describe this, so I'm going to come up with it. It's taking joy in another's misfortune, which is Schadenfreude. You know, I'm going to come up with that. Weltschmerz is a favorite I always use, because my grandmother used to use it, and it means world sorrow. Yeah. And it's that state of, I'm not necessarily depressed, I'm not necessarily feeling down in and of, for a particular reason. I'm just feeling a general sense of world sorrow, which I think could be applicable to the current moment. So anyway, what listeners tell us? Tell us about a word gap. Tell us about a situation. Mine is, as I mentioned, that thing where you have 2 seats positioned behind, one is behind the other, but we don't really have a way of saying that is equivalent to side by side, which is a lovely sort of conjoining of words, I think.
It is too. Or side by each, as some people like to say bafflingly.
Side by each. I don't think I've ever even heard that before.
I don't know where it comes from, and it's always baffled me.
But yeah, side by side or just next to each other is an easy way to describe that. So have you got any that spring to mind, Rob? Any words that you wish that existed that don't?
I'm going to have to let that rattle around my brain this week, and I'm going to report back like our listeners next week. And I think listeners, if you have either created or know of a term that fits Theo's gaping linguistic hole, then by all means suggest that as well. And maybe we can make this sort of a mutual aid society where we can all help each other find those words that will fit those empty linguistic spaces. Because if you think about it, like the construction of language, we are all sitting on the shoulders of all those that came before us who pioneered these spaces of thought and then gave them names. And I think it starts exactly with the phenomenon you're experiencing. And in fact, we need a word for that. We need a word for the feeling that there's a word for what you want to say, but you can't find it. So there you go. That's mine.
A word hole. Yeah. We need a word that means word hole.
Yeah.
But is just more eloquent than word hole.
Yeah, back to The Simpsons, I believe that's what Moe calls your mouth. Shut your word hole, Homer.
Yeah, we do. Okay, well, maybe that is the word hole, but then of course, it just doesn't. Well, clearly the Simpsons have coined it to mean mouth, so it's not. We can't then reclaim that to mean a gap in the language.
Words shape thoughts, and thoughts shape words, right? And which way the direction of travel in that relationship is unknown. But when we have words, we can then think about certain things. And so the very existence of words, like if we didn't have language, we couldn't have the same thoughts that we have, right? And so the richness of language and the availability of the words allows us to conceive of concepts which are essentially like Weltschmerz or Leuchtskissenfahrzeug, the amalgamation of many concepts in order to colonize a new space. And then ideally we find a short, sort of pithy word that captures that. And even better if it sounds like it feels, onomatopoeic, which someone created at some point, was because I need this word to describe something when a word sounds like what it is. And so all of those things, all of those were just little moments in language history where someone, Fiona, sitting on a commode one day, all of a sudden needed a word for something, and then she just came to her mind, and she sprung out of, the outhouse and declaimed it to her family, and they're like, that's kind of cool, we'll use that. And then it spread through the village, and then mass communication had it spread out into,
Yeah. Now, Rob, this being the 21st century, what I've done is I've put this proposition into ChatGPT, and do you know what do you want to know what it suggested? So I said to ChatGPT, what is it called when two items are positioned one in front of the other? Yep. And it's answered, when two items are positioned one in front of the other, it's commonly referred to as, number one, stacked, if they're placed vertically in a pile-like arrangement. Number two, aligned front to back, or in a line, if they were lined up front to back. Sort of.
But not people.
Overlapping is another suggestion.
No.
And then the final suggestion is in tandem. Now, none of those...
In tandem's pretty good, dude, because,
tandem's
a tandem
probably
bicycle,
the best one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say the seats are in tandem, rather than...
I like it. The
seats are side by side. Oh, I wouldn't have thought to say that. Maybe that's a failing on my part, but that's quite an interesting proposition from ChatGPT.
It is. I like that. So,
shall I also ask it what it would call a situation where you can't think of a word for something?
Yes, and I will queue up my pin as you do so. So, because the in tandem and your whole thing actually segues deliciously into my little anecdote. So, last night I went to a concert. I saw Philippe Catherine, who is a very irreverent French artist who kind of like gives up a bit of Serge Gainsbourg vibes, but he's completely taking the piss. And he sings in this bizarre falsetto and wears a lot of women's clothes, and it's really weird. But a friend of mine contacted me and said, to the segue, hey, I'm going to this concert next week. Do you want to grab a beer before? And then I kind of looked in the concert and said, actually, I think I'm going to come to the concert. And she had a seat near the front row of the upper deck. We're getting to the stage. We're having a seat, sometimes nice at a show. And so I went online to find seats, and I couldn't find anything in her row, but I did find one literally behind her, 3 rows back. And so that's where I sat yesterday while I watched Philippe Catherine. So I was not quite in tandem, but I was, a few rows on the upper bowl. Like so the way this thing works is there's the main floor is general admission, and then there's the balcony, which is seats, stools at a bar actually. Anyway, this fellow, I had not discovered his oeuvre before, and it's unfortunate, obviously, that we're an English-speaking podcast and that the French stuff will not resonate, but his lyrics are basically pretty hilarious on almost every single album, and he has something like 18 of them from the 90s to now. He has a song about his penis. And then and the one on his latest album came out in 2024. The
on
title
all
of the song
songs
is
ultimately about the penis. I mean,
yes, ultimately. But the song is called "Que deviens-tu," which means "What are you becoming?" And he sings this sort of song about waking up, and it's like just singing to his penis, like what will you become today, my little friend?
Oh my God! You can only do that in the French language. I mean, you just could not do that in English.
It's so genius. But then he shows up on stage and he has this song. He sings it in French and English, which the English is, "I am the Queen of England and I am shitting on your face." And he came onto the stage wearing an inflatable ball gown, a giant blue inflatable ball gown and a tiara with a wand. So it was very pantomime. I mean, you could imagine the Fairy of the Bells, wearing this at the pantomime. And he sang this song about being the Queen of England. In fact, he came on to Pomp and Circumstance, and then he went into this song.
Perfect.
And yeah, for anyone, if you ever have a chance to see Philippe Catherine, even if you don't understand French, it's kind of hilarious. Like, then he got out of the inflatable ball gown for the next number, which is a song called Tout Nu, which means completely naked. And he was basically naked, except he was wearing what looked like a sort of skin-toned jockstrap and nothing else, and a very long attached beard, and then a sort of cornucopia hat reminiscent of the Ghost of Christmas Present. And he proceeded, and he's basically, he's about my age, like, or I guess early 50s, and he's bald, but he's grown the sides incredibly long and has this sort of stash, and it's just, anyway, it is epic.
I'm suffering a word gap just trying to think of an adequate explanation or summary of what you've just described.
It's difficult to summarize.
It sounds like something it's got to be seen to be understood.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, sounds like a riot. So thank you for the recommendation there.
It was pretty good.
Hopefully he'll be touring to these shores before long and I can experience it.
I'm going to highly doubt it. Although in London, there's enough French people to justify him making the trip.
It does sound quite specific to the Quebecan culture, but
the French culture. He's French.
Okay, he's French, right? Okay.
And there is a big difference between French people and Quebecois. It's not as close as the difference between British people and Canadians or North Americans. It's wider.
Okay.
Yeah. The culture, the language, what they find funny, the swears, everything. Okay. And so the fact that this guy is able to resonate with Quebec is pretty impressive, because not a lot of French artists are able to do it. Although Quebecers do a better job going the other way. They sanitize the accent, like Céline and people like that. Anyway, that's my pick.
I hate to give the final word of the podcast over to AI, but I am going to tell you what ChatGPT has told me in response to my question, what is it called when you can't think of a word for something? And what ChatGPT is saying is it's the tip of the tongue phenomenon. Sure, but not quite. Then it suggests lethologica, which is a more technical or rare word for the inability to remember a word or name. That's a little bit different, because obviously that's forgetting a word rather than just not having the word in the first place.
Yeah.
It comes up with the mind-blowingly original suggestion of word-finding difficulty. Sure.
The Germans could turn that into a compound noun.
Oh, they definitely could. And then the final suggestion is aphasia, which is a clinical condition where someone has difficulty with language, including word recall, e.g. usually after a brain injury or stroke. So again, none of those really, for me, do what we want them to do. So we do have a word gap for a word gap. So who knows, maybe this is the place where that is going to get resolved. So let us know. Let us know your thoughts, dear listeners, on that, or any other issues that have come to mind on this typically wide-ranging episode of Two Across.
I'll give the last word before you shut us down to the Germans, who would turn word-finding difficulty into the word Wortfindungsstörung.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds quite hard.
It does.
Yeah. That's sounds like the sort of thing you might hear in an Indiana Jones film.
It does.
As an order emanating from a soldier.
Yeah. Find me the
word. Harrison Ford. Exactly.
All right.
Oh, on which note, let's take it to the sign off. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening along and for sticking with us through our 32 episodes. In fact, 33 episodes, I should say, of the second series of Two Across, meaning we are finally in the lead for the series at 17-16. So be sure to join us next week to find out if we can consolidate our lead or if we're going to slip back into a tie, leading to a potentially dramatic denouement for the series. That is not to imply the dice are loaded. We play the crosswords very honestly and transparently. So thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Do get in touch with us at twoacrosspod@gmail.com, particularly in response to that provocation about word gaps, mouth gaps, or You might have to say that, Rob, just to sign us off again.
Wortfindungsstörung.
Thank you. Goodbye.